Hello, I'm Syed Kamall, Member of the European Parliament for London. Coming up over the next couple of minutes, we'll be talking about tech, apps in your cars, and the debate tech London Mayoral Hustings. We've got a project in Lambeth talking about the need for co-working kitchens and workshops. If finance is your thing, I'll update you on my article in the Financial Times. And of course, we are talking about the EU referendum too. By the way, welcome to this podcast. It's a bit of an experiment. I don't know how frequently we'll do them, but if you like it, we'll do some more. So let me know in the comments on Facebook or Twitter if this is useful to you and what you would like to hear, and equally, if you have any questions you would like answered. Email me at syed@syedkamall.com and I will try and answer them here. So let's start with tech, which is something, as you know, I'm hugely passionate about. One of the events we visited this week was the Get in the Ring Tech Pitching event. It's very hard to define the event. It's certainly not like many serious pitching events, and a sort of combination of entertainment with some business in there too. One of the organisers described it as being a bit like rap battles for startups. The winner in the so-called middleweight category, Nick from Nair Street, spelt Nair ST, told us about how his app allows small shops to list their inventory online, so that combined they create a sort of Amazon of small shops where you can order online but from local firms.
It doesn't matter whether they're running the latest EPOS system or old clunky Windows 98 machine buzzing away in the corner, they can bring their inventory onto our platform in about 10 minutes.
Alessia Sanazaro from Chuzik won in the lightweight category. Their app helps people find new bands, but she also hopes that some of London's radio stations will be using their service.
So the way we want to provide value for radio stations is that we gather analytics on what people like and dislike in the new emerging music scene, so we can provide those analytics to the radio stations to then help them make the decisions of what to play next on the radio.
Neil Cuthbert is the principal of Eye on Startups, who ran the event. And he says that events like this can help to get the message across to a wider audience.
What you see a lot over in the States or in California is they see a lot of really high-profile events. You see a lot of the kind of unicorns that people are talking about. You see major tech demos happening. And what I would like to see in London is I want to see more of those high-profile events.
As you can imagine, this week has been very busy. So I sent along my team member, Richard, to a couple of events for me. So Rick, you went to a talk on apps in cars with Jaguar and the opportunity for businesses in London.
Yes, it was really interesting actually. Jaguar Land Rover want people to design apps for their vehicles, so they came out to talk to the tech community to basically ask for ideas. I did try and get them to do an interview on this podcast, but they didn't want to talk at this stage. But basically, firms in London who've got a great idea for a car, and particularly for their vehicles, they want them to approach them. You go through this process of getting whitelisted, but you could have your app as an official Land Rover Jaguar app on their cars in feature.
And also, you went to the Debate Tech London Mayoral Hustings. How was that?
Again, really interesting. 5 candidates there. I mean, Zach Goldsmith, obviously, and Sadiq Khan for Labour being the only two that really, I suppose, have got any chance of becoming mayor. What was interesting, though, was the sheer number of people in the room. It just shows how important tech has become to London. And as Russ Shaw from Tech London Advocates said at the beginning, this is the first one of these tech hustings because of the importance of the sector now. Interesting was one thing Sadiq Khan said, I'm going to have a chief digital officer for London, which was one of the things the tech community was saying they wanted. But moments later, Zach Goldsmith said exactly the same thing, and the other candidates were saying the same thing as well. So clearly there wasn't a lot of agreement there. Not surprisingly, Uber, as always, one of those contentious issues, and about whether and how you maintain that balance between the black cabs and Uber. But that's a discussion that's going to go on and on and on, as we know.
This week, I spoke to a project in Lambeth called Tree Shepherd. They take the seed of a business idea and then nurture it into an enterprise. They particularly focus on those who are traditionally seen as long-term unemployed or even unemployable. I asked Colin Crooks, who founded the organisation, how it works.
Tree Shepherd is all about supporting ordinary people to set up a business that can help them get into work. People who might not be working at the moment but have always had an idea.
And this morning we talked through a number of different ideas about how you reach those people who are hard to reach sometimes, and also they have no idea that they could start up their own businesses, sort of beyond them initially, and then you encourage them and take them through a process. One of the interesting things you told me about, though, was this whole idea of a shared space. Now, we see ideas of shared spaces all the time, but what's unique about the idea that you have?
Well, I think the challenge with the shared space model that you normally see, it's more about laptops and computers, and actually the types of businesses that the people we're working with want to set up would be more about catering, would be sewing, would be making a craft like jewellery or something. So we need shared spaces with the proper equipment and workshop space so that people can carry on their trade, their craft, their catering in a way that doesn't cost them the fortune that they'd need to spend if they were trying to do it on their own.
So we've had a fascinating conversation this morning about all the ideas, but also looking forward how I might be able to help you, such as putting you in touch with the DWP to see how we could roll out the programme, but also maybe putting you in touch with property developers to see as part of their development programmes locally if they can offer entrepreneurs a space or another way of helping them. And if you want to find out more about Tree Shepherd, go to treeshepherd.org and you can hear the full interview on my website. I'm worried about banking. Last week, I was interviewed by the Financial Times about my views on financial regulation and concerns that I have about the health of the banking sector. Well, I was arguing that given all the financial regulation that we've had since the financial crisis, have we really solved the problems of bank failure? And if a bank failed tomorrow, would it still need to be bailed out with taxpayers' money? I was also concerned about the upcoming debate on securitisation. In simple terms, securitisation is where you pool large amounts of debt, then chop it up into little tranches and separate it into different financial instruments. And this was seen to be a major cause behind the financial crisis. And I'm concerned that in the move to move back towards securitisation, that we haven't solved the problems that occurred before the financial crisis. And you can read more on the website or go to the Financial Times website itself. And finally, by no means least, the EU referendum. Where are we? Well, this week, David Cameron will be coming to Brussels to address something called the Conference of Presidents, which is the leaders of all the political groups in the European Parliament, of which I'm the leader of the European Conservatives and Reformists, the third largest of the 8 political groups in the European Parliament. He'll then be attending the Leaders' Summit, where he'll be meeting with the other leaders of other EU countries to try and finalise a deal on Britain's relationship with the EU. And if he finalises that deal, it's expected that he could call a referendum for June this year. What we're hoping is that the deal will be finalised by next week, but it still has to go through the European Parliament, and there'll be some questions over whether it can be unpicked or whether there could be amendments. But we hope to have most of the deal finalised by next week. And I'm going to be releasing 2 pocket guides on the European Parliament, on how the EU works, but also the issues around the EU referendum very soon. Keep an eye on my Twitter feed, @Syed Kamall, on Facebook, Syed Kamall MEP, or for more detail on all of this, go to my website at syedkamall.com. Talking of websites, I have a new one coming very soon with lots of new information. So I'll update you on that as soon as I can. I hope you found this podcast interesting. Have a great week and speak soon.